Welcome back to the Juicery series podcast. And we have Dr. Mick Hall, naturopath. So Dr. Hall, let's talk about ways in which sometimes we've been led to believe that illness can be a mystery. I am experiencing, let's say, a headache. I'm experiencing, joint pain. I'm experiencing back pain. I'm experiencing something. And then I may get a diagnosis, and the diagnosis may say, well, it could be a matter of these things. And then here, take this. Mm-hmm. And then let me know a few days how you feel. But I always felt inside myself that there is actually a practical way in which there are red flags or signals or signs in which, if properly identified or known, we can really nip this in the bud early on. So can we talk about some of those today, such as maybe arthritis or diabetes or even cancer, just some things.
Let's talk about where you're going there of how does this stuff evolve and develop? Because, of course, a diagnosis, this is the purpose of a doctor, is to diagnose and treat disease. And with the medical world, it appears to us as everything is just fine. In fact, a doctor will tell you you're fine if there is no diagnosable disease. And you go away scratching your head and saying, well, that's why I came to the doctor anyway, because I didn't feel like things were fine. Well, health is a quality of life. And when the quality of life is diminished, that can take place years before a diagnosable disease. And so, yes, the body in its brilliance gives us little red flags like headaches and pains and things like this. All of these symptoms, as much as we dislike them, they are warning signs that are telling us something underneath is brewing. And this is the reason why it isn't always the best idea to rush and have these symptoms erased too quickly. Mm-hmm. And especially, we live in a world of cause and effect. And when we experience an effect in life teaches us over and over again, if we see an effect, we better find out what the cause is and correct that. Otherwise, we're guaranteed that effect is going to return. Well,
excuse me, interrupting. Wouldn't you say that? Would you even say that the way I've been brought up is to handle the effect at the effect and not the cause?
Yes.
And that's what I'm hearing you say with, like, subduing my symptom, which is the effect. But I'm not really addressing what went on for me to even have what I'm having or experience what I'm experiencing.
In a world of cause and effect, the greatest cure in the world is still only temporary, because it is alleviating the effect while leaving all levels of cause in place. And so you're guaranteed that whatever that condition was is going to return. You're guaranteed, because all levels of cause are still in place. Now, if you have a puddle of water in your kitchen and you wipe that up, you're going to be wiping it up probably tomorrow morning if you don't figure out how that water got there and correct the cause. Is it a hole in the ceiling? Is it a hole in the fridge? What is it? Is it a leak in the dog?
Yes.
If you don't figure out the cause, it's going to be back again.
So let's talk about some of those hows. Physical hows, because we mentioned early on our first segment that it begins with, I would even say, thought directing the emotion, which is leading to a physical experience.
Contracts a physical, yes.
So let's start with the physical experience of just simplistically how the body is being laid out, which is, I would say, generating certain ailments.
Okay, what is disease made of? That's probably a good starter point here. There's 8 ingredients to disease. There's chemicals, metals, dead tissue cells, unusable food residue, mucus, acid waste, oxidized arterial plaque, which is the bad cholesterol, and radiation. If you had a magic wand and you can remove every bit of that from the body, what are you going to create disease out of? And keep in mind, viruses, bacteria, parasitic worms, even when tissue cells mutate into a cancer cell, they're all parasites. They thrive on rotting food waste. And if we didn't look at like catering trucks to them, We wouldn't have the bacterial problems. Okay, what are they thriving on? They're thriving on rotting food waste. Now, that same substance is what clogs and blocks areas of the body, overwhelms the liver, backs up the lymphatic system. Now, keep in mind, we have trillions of cells 24 hours a day producing lactic acids and putting them out into the flow to wash away. What is that flow? That's the lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system, when the brain and the wisdom of the body sees that the liver can't keep up with the workload of cleaning the blood and neutralizing the acidity, the brain will tighten the muscles right here under the collarbones where all that lymph is supposed to dump into the bloodstream, and it'll say, no way, wait a second. And it'll stagnate that lymph. Well, when you get a certain amount of back pressure in the lymphatic system, you're going to be poisoning tissue cells, killing mitochondria, and causing all kinds of problems.
For those who are listening who may not understand or know what lymph is, could you explain?
There's about 3 times more lymph in the body than there is blood, and it's a circulatory system without a pump running parallel to the bloodstream that washes all the acid waste away from all the blood, all the tissue cells of the body, and dumps it into the bloodstream for the liver to handle.
So they are the waste department in our city. So we understand when we all know in Bermuda, like when guys are going on strike, you know what happens. You know, if it's a holiday and nobody picks up the trash, we know what happens. So what I'm hearing you say is that's essentially what's happening in our body if our lymph isn't moving efficiently.
Once the brain shuts the lymph down, now it can't shut it down completely, otherwise within probably a half hour of the lymph being completely shut down, you die. In fact, it's interesting, but when an animal dies, whether it's shot or whatever happens to it, the heart stops, the brain stops, everything, it looks like the animal is dead. 20 minutes later, every cell in the body is still alive. Nothing has killed them. As far as they're concerned, their whole world fell on its side, but they didn't know that means that they have to die. When every cell dies is when the stagnated lymph backs up and poisons them to death. And every person with this overwhelmed liver, which includes basically everybody that is over 40 years of age that hasn't done a gallbladder flush, the brain is starting to stagnate that lymph. That's what they call the natural aging process. Exactly like the oil filter getting clogged up and the engine getting worn out prematurely. We're believing that we're supposed to get old and die by the time we're 77, 78 years of age. Well, that's just like saying, well, every car should go to 45,000 miles and scrap it then. No, we've learned that if you properly maintain that car, you can get 250,000 miles out of it. If you and I are not on this planet still by the time we're 130 years of age,
come on now,
we've committed suicide somehow.
And I know for some of our listeners and people that are watching, I know that sounds crazy. It sounds crazy, but I've read and seen cultures who life doesn't start until 70. That's true. 60 or 70, and that's when you're still like a quote unquote baby or learning at 40 and 50.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting and profound to hear you say that. Even though I know it's completely contrary to what I've been told.
Well, if you're getting a brand new body every year, why? See, the real problem is every year after 40 years of age, there becomes more sewage in the bloodstream to replace those cells. That's bad news. So, by clearing the filters and getting this the sewage system working properly, then there's less and less sewage. And I see with people who are taking proper care of themselves, 70, 80 years of age, they have much better, much stronger, cleaner blood than teenagers now. People that are becoming aware of these principles, their blood looks stronger and healthier than teenagers. And a few people that I'm working with in the States there, I presented to them the philosophy of 35 for life, and they caught it. They caught the vision of it, and they're doing it. And this one friend, he's about 75 years of age, and he says, man, if my 35-year-old, who he was when he was 35, if he met me on the basketball court today, he wouldn't stand a chance. That's awesome. Then pressing weights, he goes to the gym at 75, and he's leg pressing about 550 pounds about 20 times. He says, my 35-year-old couldn't do that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And, you know, for all the dads and moms out there who, you know, trying to keep up with their children, I think this is just really the optimal way to go. And what I'm hearing you say is something so simplistic as to just clearing out the waste material in our body, starting with the gallbladder.
Exactly. There's other methods that I'm teaching people, like detox baths to clean the blood and the lymph through the skin, getting the intestinal tract taken care of, but the gallbladder is just kind of an essential for all of us. Yeah.
I think it's important, you know, and we could talk about this when we come back on air. The key things that I've seen in the past decade of working with people here on island are arthritis, diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, people now more so than ever going on dialysis, you know, and just talk about maybe some of those simple techniques or simple areas that they may not even have known about, or no one even knew to tell them.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a big thing. There may be, Mick, some people just didn't know that it was easy, you know, just didn't know.
It's avoidable.
It's like
it's like aging, debilitating aging. It's like we're all brainwashed to believe that one day that'll happen to us. It's totally debilitating. Age is just one more preventable degenerative disease, just like all those you mentioned. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to go to a break. Stay locked in with Juicery Podcast series. And when we get back, we're going to be talking about some simple ways in which we can begin to bring ourselves back from some common ailments that we may or may not be experiencing.